I do think everything works now, amazingly. I don't know if anyone's even here yet, but I think we're live. Nice. So welcome to everyone who's here. I might wait a little bit to actually get into the lecture. Usually we have a waiting screen. We let people like trickle in while the countdown happens and stuff. But that was not possible today because we had a bunch of technical issues. Yeah, but it worked out. It worked out. I think now we're live. I would appreciate confirmation that we're live because I think we're live. Oh, hello, PIWH. Welcome. Nice. Okay, we're live. That's great. So, actually, I have the wrong slide. That's unfortunate. That's a great way to start. Actually, we should start here with this slide. I wanted to talk about so some of you may have gotten an email where it was announced that I will be talking about blunders and game losing mistakes. And when I told Antti, the I guess head teacher, boss question mark of the Nordico Dojo about this title for my lecture, I hadn't realized that I want to talk about something slightly different, of which mistakes that lose the game and blunders are a subset. They're an important subset, but they are a subset. And what I actually want to talk about is mistakes not worth thinking about. And what are those? So sometimes we play a game or some part of the game or a move that we are not happy with, that like we think is way below our standards, that was really terrible. And we think, yeah, that was like below my level, that was really bad, I shouldn't have done that. And this can be anything. This can be like you blunder something, like you play a one move blunder and you just die with a group. This can be like suddenly you decide that invading some area is a good idea and then you just die everywhere and you're like, well, that was dumb. And importantly, these are mistakes you make that feel like you shouldn't be making them because you're already supposed to know why you shouldn't be making them. Like you understand that they're bad moves. And I claim that this type of feeling is quite common. It happens to many of us very often. And the reason I say that they're not worth thinking about, or that we can frame them that way, is that these types of mistakes are, we understand them on some level, or we understand that we shouldn't be doing them and why. So it's easy to dismiss them. Like, yeah, I just played bad that game, and you move on. Or I just blundered that game, and you move on. And I think that implicitly what we're doing when we move on like that is that we're saying, well, it's below my level, so I won't do it again. I think that happens to people sometimes. And I am here to claim, tentatively, that maybe it isn't that simple, in the sense that maybe these mistakes are worth thinking about. They're not random. You can find patterns, and we can, to some extent, try to analyze what's behind them and hopefully learn from the types of mistakes that we think are beneath us, let's say. That's the pitch for this particular lecture. Now, I want to offer a disclaimer of sorts. Some of the things I'm going to talk about, this is a more like psychological lecture, rather. I mean, it's about Go, but it's more about like our psychology when we play Go. I'm not a psychologist. I have some experience teaching. I have some experience with how I think. A lot of the things I am going to talk about are things I catch myself doing like every other loss. But I don't know how well this maps onto other people. It's a very personal thing. I hope this can help other people think about how they think about their own like blunders and their own really terrible mistakes. But I'm not 100% sure about how well this maps onto other people's psychologies. I think it maps reasonably well into some of my student psychologies, like the ones I've gotten to talk to in private lessons and stuff like that. I get to hear a lot about what they think, and I have a fairly good idea. Um, so that's the disclaimer. Um, my first pitch is going to be that not always is it the case that we make a mistake and like that we blunder away the game or we play the game really badly, and our perception is correct. Like, it's happened to me before that a student comes to me. This actually happened once. This is a real life example. And I tried to find this game because this is a game that a student sent to me. And he sent it to me saying, well, I played, yeah, I was winning by like 20 points. I was doing really well. And then I just played really terrible in the second half of the game. And I'm kind of embarrassed to show you this game. And it's a bit like, yeah, it's really unfortunate what happened. I just played terrible. And he's not the first person that came with a story like that to me. Some students don't want to show me certain games because they think it's like embarrassing that they think that they played really badly and they don't want to show those games. And he was brave. He showed me the game, even though he felt a bit bad about it, which I really appreciate. And when I looked at the game, I saw a very different story. Now, I would have loved to find this game to show it to you. And I tried very hard. I looked through my computer files and unfortunately couldn't find the game, which is a shame. I would have loved to show it. But I can tell you the general story. I'll move on to like actual game examples with SGFs I have in like a little bit. Yeah, so I looked through the game, and my student was ahead 20 points in cash, but his opponent had like this big influence, like a bunch of like influence, a big mojo. And my student played normally in the second half of the game and lost normally. Like, he didn't play great, but it wasn't anything particularly strange. So we get into our lesson, and I start asking this student about like what he thought about the game, like which moves he thought were that bad, and he didn't have such a good idea. The concept that a game could be shame instead of lost. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a classification of game that you just don't want to show other people. I sort of identify with that. I had a lesson earlier today with my teachers, and I showed them games which I wouldn't have loved to show. But there we are. It's important. Okay, so it turned out that the student didn't have such a good idea of like what his specific mistakes were that led to him losing this game, which from his perspective was totally won. And after some time, he realized that, oh, actually, I was never like ahead. Let's say it was just an even game that I lost normally, and I need to look at how I understand influence, and how I evaluate influence. And that's a pretty big revelation. Like, that's a big step of progress relative to never having shown the game, never having thought about it, and having this perception, yeah, I just played really badly and I threw the game away. And I'm really grateful that the student showed me that game, because this lets us analyze something that on his own he wouldn't have analyzed. Probably. I mean, I'm not sure, but he seemed very dismissive. And if you analyze games that just look like you threw them away stupidly, you can often find surprisingly useful and important pieces of information. And I want to show some like real game examples of that type of phenomenon. Yeah. And I want to start by considering whether our blunders and like huge mistakes are actually as big as we think they are. And for that, I will switch screens and go to here. Yes. Hope everyone sees the board. This game. Yeah, this game. So this, you look to be dressed quite warmly to be indoors. And hi browser. Yeah, this is gas prices, my friend. We have no gas in this house, so it's freezing. Yeah, I'm not spending any money on gas, so here we are. Um, so this game is a game I played in a tournament about 2 weeks ago. I played in a real life tournament, and this is a game against yeah, Nordic Spirit, indeed, High Battle Porridge. So this game is a game I played against a 3-dan professional. A Taiwanese 3-dan professional. He's pretty good. I ended up losing this game. But I want to talk about only a small moment in this game. I am... Wait, who was I? I was white. Yes, I was white. And, okay, I don't want to talk about the first part of the game too much. This is an interesting game in itself, but I don't want to dally too much on the parts I'm not interested in. So the basic gist is that Black tried to enclose me, like with N6. I observe that there's some shape issues. I cut to see what happens, and he basically handshakes this trade. Like, he's obviously allowing me to cut like this and kill, not like that, and kill the 2 stones. And in exchange, he gets all of these center moves. He gets a strong center. Oh, he gets a strong center, and it's some trade. This isn't particularly good for either side, in my opinion. So he offers me this handshake, and I accept it. I played this really quickly. And at this moment, I thought, wait, next move, Black's going to protect his weaknesses by taking here. So what if I get really, really smart and Atari here first, and then play L2? And that way, Black isn't going to capture at L6 because it's illegal. So Black will maybe fix like this, and I will run out. And I thought that that's an improvement. That's slightly better because these 2 stones aren't captured in Ponuki, so like I have some Sente moves. Black has fewer liberties. It's like generally better. In the game, he played this Atari, which I didn't even think of. And at this moment, I get this like sinking feeling, like, oh my god, am I dying? And I assume some of us have had this before, because I saw here, 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 here. And this looks very much like I am getting captured. Example, here, 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 and then I just can't get out. I can't break out in any way. And say, for example, I try and escape this way. Black can peep and center and play here, and I'm still dead. Fortunately, I have a way out, which I didn't see before Black played the Atari. So before this Atari, I hadn't even seen my my escape. I can play here, and now Hane, which is a disgusting looking move, because after Black Ataris, it looks like I just played here. That's a bit weird. But it does escape. It barely escapes. If Black tries to double Hane, I get to escape this way, and moreover, after I connect, Black can't cut because of the snapback. So White doesn't just live, White kills all of Black's stones. Now, this guy is a 3-dan professional, so he'd seen all of this. He just decided to sacrifice the stones. Like, in this position, he decided, yeah, I can just make all of these exchanges in Sente. And he actually didn't immediately double Hane, he just Tenuki'd. Sorry, he first exchanged this, then he Tenuki'd. And he just decided that this is worth it, that this is okay for Black. From my perspective, once we reached this position, I was feeling terrible because I just played this move and didn't even think that I would get squeezed. Not like that. Like that. So I just missed something that I shouldn't be missing, and I could have just lost the game. Like, if I hadn't just been lucky, I would have died with everything, which is a very embarrassing way to lose the game. And at the time, even though I did manage to escape, I thought that I'm worse anyway. So in this position where Black just gets all of these Sente moves, like this would be the final position if Black chose to play all of the Sente moves immediately. In this position, I still thought I'm worse. And my reasoning at the time was that, well, I did get some territory, but Black got a huge wall, Black got Sente, my stones look very efficient, etc. And I felt pretty bad. And the key point here is I felt pretty bad. I played on. I won't show you the rest of the game. It's not important for the purpose of this lecture. The important bit is that I had this perception that I had not lost the game here, but that a lot of the reason I lost was this point. Like, I fell behind here, and the game was tough after that. So I didn't look too critically at the rest of the game. I didn't immediately analyze the rest of the game to see what I'd done wrong. Because, I mean, I actually, this game ended up being very close. It was a very close end game, and I think it was out of control for both of us at some point. There was some crazy end game fighting at the end. Yeah, so it was an interesting game, and I thought, well, I did what I could given like the bad start. Later, I asked my teacher about this position. This is Go of 10 in the chat. And he said, I like white here. And I'm like, eh? What? And I look at the AI, and the AI is also like, I mean, the AI didn't like white here, but the AI thought that the game's even, completely even. And this put things into perspective, where I must have done something else wrong to lose this game later in the game. And in fact, I analyzed this game with my teacher. I've thought about it a bit, and there are a lot of other things I did wrong, which I can learn from. If I'd never looked at these other sources, I would very possibly have just thought, well, I did my best, I played an okay game, except for this one dumb mistake, like making this stupid exchange without thinking about the repercussions. And I think that this is an example where my own analysis of the game could have prevented me from learning some very useful things. Because this game was very rich with things I could have learned later, and I wouldn't have taken them seriously if I'd just dismissed the whole game based off of this one mistake. Why did I do it? I think it's because it's such a stupid mistake. Like, I can give you an example of a stupid mistake that isn't very impactful. Sometimes this Joseki gets played. And Jeff, who is another teacher at the Nordic Go Dojo, likes to talk about how when he plays on Fox against 7-dan Fox players or 7-dan Taijin players, they very often make this exchange as black, which is a terrible exchange. You shouldn't make it. It takes your own liberties. It makes the life of these 4 stones worse. If you ever pincer for any reason, it means you can never play the endgame at A. It's just a bad exchange. You don't need to play that exchange, and it's bad. Now, Jeff complains, well, sometimes my opponents, who are sometimes even stronger than 7-dan, maybe they're 8-dan or 9-dan on Fox or on Taijin, they play this exchange, and he, like, retches in disgust because it's a terrible move. And then he loses to these people. To the people who play this kind of move, which he finds abhorrent. And the key point is that this exchange isn't good. It's demonstrably terrible. But when I say terrible, I'm using very abusive language for this move. But it's not that harmful. It's obviously bad. But how much does it lose? What is it actually doing badly? What is it? What is the negative? And the negative effects are clear, but they're not big. So this is what I call a moral mistake. You're playing something that's morally terrible, and that will, like, incur the disapproval of many other players. But many players, me included, tend to overvalue the mistakes if they are morally bad. There's many mistakes which are very unappealing to us that make me think worse of the player that makes them, or that if I make them, that I think, wow, that was really bad of me, that was terrible, I shouldn't have done that, but don't harm the position that much. I think that's exactly what happened to me here. Oh wait, this is the wrong way. Whoops. Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me here. I made a mistake which was really bad. It's a huge oversight that could have cost me the game. In practice, it didn't cost me barely anything. Because this result where black squeezes me is actually fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I just felt bad because I hadn't seen it and I could have died and I got scared. Um, and I think that this is one type of bias where the magnitude of a mistake in a like in terms of how many points it loses, um yeah, so the magnitude of the mistakes in a purely point sense, how much it loses if you input it into a computer or something like that, is much lower than your feeling when you make the mistake. That's one thing that happens. That game had some Tomi looking Josekis in it. Yes, you're featuring Tomi. Yeah, Browser's my student, for those of you who don't know. And this is one example of a type of bias that occurs. Let's look at another example. So, this game, yeah, this game indeed is one of Tomi's games. And actually, before we go through this game, so my student's black here, and when my student sent me this game, he said, yeah, this game was a bit unfortunate. I failed the kill. And I thought, okay, that's unfortunate. When you fail a kill, your chances of winning go down. That's true. And Black did fail a kill here. And we're going to quickly go through that. This game... wait, what? Oh, I uploaded the totally wrong game. Hold on. I uploaded... So, I have lots of the students' games. And I uploaded one which he played against the same opponent. But it's not the right game. Whoops, 1 second. I may have used this in another lecture, by the way, but it's not. This is the wrong game. Hold on. I can find the right game. It just won't. It'll take me a bit. The other one is more recent, yes. Downloads. I don't get it. Oops. Yeah. This stream has been rife with technical errors. I'll find it. I'll just go into my chat history with my student, and it'll be there. This particular game might also not be a bad example, by the way, of what I'm talking about. But I didn't prepare it, so I won't look at that. There we go. Okay, that's been downloaded, and my computer's lagging really badly, unfortunately, because it's old. Merge file. Downloads. And hold on. It's oddly elusive. I apologize for the delay. I think it's an important example, so I do want to include it. It's just... Okay. Ah, there it is. Okay. I found it. That's good. So there you are. And you're in. Yes! Finally. Okay, we're back. Thank you to all three of you that were willing to watch through me struggling to upload the right game. Let's get into that example now. So so remember that the point of this game, like the story that my student told me. Oh, hello, Jumping Point. Welcome. The story that my student told me was that, and this isn't totally inaccurate, by the way, as we'll see, was that, oh yeah, he lost and he failed to kill. Like at some point he could have killed something and he didn't manage. So let's look through it. My student's black. And I mean, this game is interesting in itself, but I want to get to the key point. And we get to this point where my student found a really annoying way to cut white in the center, and then white has two weak groups. White has two weak groups, white starts running, and then black starts to attack these stones. And this doesn't need to be a killing attempt. Black's fine without killing, but we'll see what happens. Because black can try to kill this. Yeah, and here white's attempting to threaten some cut action, but for the moment I don't think anything works. Say black, I don't know, let's pretend black passes or something. White still can't really capture anything. What white is threatening, though, very sneakily, is to cut this way. So in my opinion, the safest way for black to protect here is just to jump. There's no cut, and now white's cuts over here does nothing, and white has to find a way to conjure two eyes in this area, which is not easy. I actually suspect white would die here. I'm not 100% sure about that, but then, you know, white would be in some trouble because either the game's okay for both sides, or either the game's okay for both sides, or white just resigns. So yeah, black tried to peep here, and the problem with the peep, it might still be fine, but it creates some issues after white plays f11 for themselves, where there's like some problems around b. And long story short, after black connects and white threatens to capture these stones, and that gets white enough sente moves to cut here, and black can't block because now both A and B can kill black. So in the end, white escapes. And we get to this position where, unfortunately, white's group is the one that got away, and black didn't manage to get the very juicy kill. That happens. So this is where we get to the point where, according to my student, he missed a kill. And this is undeniably correct. The game could have been won here, and it wasn't. But the game is not over. There's still a story to be had here. And my student also mentioned something along the lines of, well, I felt that, like, at some point I thought that I needed to kill to win. So it seemed, and my student's actually in the chat, so my student can disagree with this. That would be fine. Do let me know if I'm misrepresenting your thoughts. If your winning relies on you killing one group, you probably messed up before I had the student. Yeah, so the point is that black didn't need to kill to win. This is a missed perception. I would advocate that black might be better here. Because remember when black cut. When black cut, white doesn't have one weak group. White has two. White has two very weak groups here. And even though one of them got away, even if it got away, black got a huge wall in return, and black got sente. It's black's turn now. So if I were black here, I would play this Kosumitsuke, and white would have to defend somehow, and then I would Keima in the center. And now this whole thing is weak, and white has to deal with this. And even though white has a lead in territory, I don't think it's very large. It's a few points. And white has to be very careful. Like, I think the game would go something like this, and maybe black would push, maybe white would Keima, and black is definitely going to be able to reduce the corner because white has to be busy connecting their stones. Like, this isn't... white can't just protect because there's some issues around getting cut and murdered. So maybe a very rough estimate of what could happen this game is white keeps connecting somehow, and then black invades. And then white suddenly doesn't have as many points as they used to. Rough outline. In this position, black isn't worse. In fact, I think black's probably better. Though black might not be better, but black's okay. Black is in no way worse. And my student instead played O5. And 05 is actually a very reasonable move from some perspective, because as my student pointed out, let's do whatever, like let's play here or something. White peeps, white plays here, and black doesn't have eyes either. Yeah, that's true. And unfortunately, this is a mistake, because if white's dying, then white doesn't have time to kill black. Like, say white tries to kill, and then black plays something like, I don't know, even this Kosumi, and white will die more quickly than black will. So unfortunately, here's a place where black had a chance to be aggressive, and instead black was conservative. This is not an obviously bad move. I understand why black played it. But when my student sent me this game record with like his account of what happened, the description was a little bit reductive in that the story was, oh, I tried to kill, I ended up having to kill something. I didn't intend to have to kill it, but it seems like I did have to kill it. And it's a shame I didn't manage. And yeah, I just missed the kill that I forced myself to begin, like, to have to get. And this ended up losing a lot of resolution, like a lot of details in what actually happened, because even though it's true that black missed a kill, and that's important to look at this point, black is still not worse. And it's only because of this slower move that gave white time to protect their own group and connect easily and make points on the right side that white actually was better. And because of the kill that black missed earlier in the game, I think that black, to some extent, blind spotted the mistake that he made later. And I think that this is a common affliction among humans. I'm not 100% sure, because I don't have as good of an I don't have that my access to other people's minds isn't as strong as my own, but I know it happens to me, and you know, humans are kind of similar in relevant ways. Just like in this game that I played, I had some story that I gave myself for why I lost a game that was very reductive and deprived me of a lot of valuable information that I could learn from. I think my student did something similar. I had an example from another private student of mine, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, and that was actually the best example. I just couldn't find it, which is really unfortunate. Like, I looked all through my computer and it just wasn't there, which sucks. But yeah, I can. I have some examples from my own games. Sometimes when I do these lectures, I try and look for games from the Nordic Go Dojo League that, you know, I and other Nordic Go Dojo teachers review. And unfortunately, I won't be looking at any games specifically from the Nordic Go Dojo games, because I don't want to use games. This is a lecture about basically our psychology when we think about the game, and I don't want to use I don't want to use games of people whose thought process I haven't heard out loud, because it's I think this is a slightly, I'm gonna say, you need information about the person to make good assertions about what's going on in their head, I guess. This looks so much like your game against Xian. Yes, this is my game against Xian. Okay, so I think Jumping Point wasn't here yet, but this is the first example I use. And Jumping Point was actually described for that game. Thank you for that. Yeah. Okay, next example is also from my recent tournament. And in this game I was white. And this is a much stronger example of me making this mistake. Yeah, I can blame Jumping Point for messing up the colors. Well, yes, you can also thank Jumping Point for making the SGF, but oh well. Yeah, the colors were unfortunate. Everyone in the Nordic Go Dojo server thought I won. I got like 15 congratulations or something, and yeah. So this game is from the same tournament, and I'm white. And the beginning of the game isn't that interesting. And then some fight happens. My opponent is Stanislav Frelak, who is currently playing in the Polish Championship. In fact, funnily enough, there's somebody doing commentary on the Polish Championship games, and it's another Nordic Go Dojo teacher. And unfortunately, that coincides with the timing of this stream, which isn't good for either one of us. But oh well. So Stanislav Frelak, I think, is playing the Polish Championship right now, and we played about 2 weeks ago. He's black, and we got into this fight. This crazy fight where I'm trying to enclose black, black's trying to break out, and the result is this very dubious sacrifice where I get a huge wall, I get a bunch of sent moves, and black gets a lot of points. I know that I just zoomed through this, and I'm not gonna expect people to have like a very good perception of what actually happened, because I mean, at least for me to evaluate a position, it's often important to see how it happened instead of just the final position, or like it's not the only thing I use, but it's helpful. I'd be curious to see what people think about this position. What are people's thoughts on who's better and how much better? I think that this point is actually important to the subsequent commentary I want to make on this game. While people think about that, I will take a sip of water or two. I feel like everyone would be like, "Oh no, I failed," and I would just be ecstatic at how well it went. Slightly exaggerated, but I'd be like, I think I'd probably like this more for white than most people. The wall seems great, but black has so much influence in the center already that I feel like it will be very hard to use and compensate. Hi there, got a very good feeling as black. Welcome, welcome V4 Vaga. Yeah. Okay, so people tend to like black. 50 points for black, game over, says Papasner. Would definitely choose black here. Yeah, I would also choose black here. Now, some of you know me. I like influence. I'm the influence person. And whereas some people here are pretty definitive about whether they about how much they like black here, and black is better. I didn't think I was better. I just didn't know how worse I am. I thought I could be like during the game. I had a hard time evaluating this position, and I thought I could be anywhere from slightly worse to much worse. I didn't think I was in the game over zone. Like I didn't think the game's desperate yet, and you can sort of see this in my play. Like I played J12, which is like just a comp protecting move, and here when I reviewed the game with my teacher suggested playing this attachment to attack the black wall, which is a relatively, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a desperate way of playing, because I think these moves are not like inherently bad. They're okay. But white's hoping to make this black group weaker than it should be to recover. For reference, AI gives black plus 17 or something like that, which I think is a bit excessive personally. Okay. During the game, I thought that during the game I thought that I'm slightly too much worse, but the game's playable. Yeah, why B4? B4 is really big. I understand him playing it, so if black plays something else, I can always take the corner. And because I have a relatively strong wall here, This also means that maybe something like this pincer will be annoying later. If black defends, this also means that maybe something like this peep is more annoying for white because white isn't locally alive on the left side. I think before is okay. I don't think it's the only move. I think black could play random move in the center. I think black could play L17, and those would also be good moves. To me, my alert tells me to go to the center directly. Yeah, I understand. I think that from my opponent's perspective, this is a wall which isn't that weak. So even if you're I'm winning, I should be safe instinct is to just protect. He wanted to play like the biggest move instead of the safest move. Yeah, which a lot of really confident players do. So okay. Here, I'm in Byoyomi for context, and after making this exchange, I was thinking about how to attack the black stones, like these stones, because I understand that I'm somewhat behind, and I want to pressure the black center stones to like try and use my influence and like recover, because I do understand I'm worse to some degree or another. And as my clock beeped down, like 10 seconds, 5 seconds, I couldn't find a good move to like attack this. And I thought, I guess I'll just play this move, which is big, and like wait and decide how to attack later. And then as my clock beeped down to 1 second, I thought, what if I get greedy and play here because I'm behind? So I played here, which is one of the worst moves I've played in a while. And then my opponent, Atari, played this exchange. And I'm obviously not going to defend and let him take the corner, so I protected. And then Black Haned. And I'm dead. It's not that complicated. I'm just dead. I tried to do some stuff. I failed miserably. I can't really make this squeeze. The squeeze would be nice because maybe now, for example, I could dream about some kind of liberty race, like this, and like maybe like this. I don't think this even works, but the squeeze is still much better than what happened in the game. Much better. So, oh, I also had a funny idea. This one? Okay, that's aside the point. This squeeze would be really nice to have. But I don't have it because black can just Atari here and pull out. And then I'm just dying ignominiously. And I was in time pressure, yes, but this is still like a morally bad mistake. And I say morally in the sense that I look at this and it viscerally disgusts me that I played this move. It's really bad. It's a really bad lack of understanding, misread, whatever. Like, it's all at the same time. And that makes me have a strong reaction to it. So in the game, I'm in Byoyomi, I panic, I tried to fight for this somehow, and I eventually resigned because I'm just gonna die with the 3 stones, and the position already wasn't good for me in the first place. And that's how I lost this game. After the game, I discussed with my opponent, and we concluded that black is certainly better at this point. Black has the advantage. But in my mind, when was it? This game? It was 2 weeks ago. After the game, I still, in my mind, the story of the game was still like, I was worse, but the game was playable, and I just made this big mistake and died. And that's like the main thing I should look at. And from that, I thought, well, up until here, I got into a really complicated fight, and I had to burn a lot of time, and I was in big time pressure, even though it's not even move 100. I should try and play more quickly, or I should try and get into like less complicated fights to so I have more time, because time pressure is a problem for me. That's something like what I got out of this game. Afterwards, I looked at this game with a friend, and later I looked at this game with my teacher, and I realized that I have so much to look at before this point. Like, uh, from a learning perspective, like things I can learn, this mistake is important because just blundering and dying isn't good. Sure. So I can look at that. But the initial result where I died and traded for this wall was much worse than I thought it was. And I fundamentally misunderstood it. And incidentally, I fundamentally misunderstood the value of my wall. One of the reasons I even thought of this really terrible move to go down is that I overestimated the value of my wall. And I didn't like visualize how I'm not even strong enough to, for example, net here. So my misunderstanding my misunderstanding of the prior position contributed to the really bad mistake. And I think to a large extent, K18 is the final mistake, but the reason I scapegoated it is that it was also the mistake where I realized how bad the game was. So here is when we switch back to our PowerPoint slide. And I have a claim, which is that games are not usually lost in one move. That's extremely uncommon. And when we lose, either in one move, or let's say we play really badly, like we have some stretch of the game, like another example is this game of my students, not that game, this game of my students, where he failed to kill these white stones, and this was like the main thing in his head that stuck out. Like, this is the reason I lost. And while it's true that that was a mistake, and while it is also true that while it's also true that K18 is a big mistake on my end. Oh wait, I'm trying to find it. Well, it's true that this is a big mistake on my end. It's very easy to dismiss our level of play. Like we can say, yeah, the game was normal or normal-ish, and I messed up here. And in my mind, this K18 move becomes the scapegoat that allows me to not think about the rest of the game. And I think that that's a dangerous habit. When we make mistakes that are not worth thinking about, which is the title of this lecture, it's over here, I want to advocate that we should analyze what's behind our mistakes, because very often it'll tell us a lot more than we think it will. Very often we will find a bigger issue that's underlying the blunder. So I could have just gone on with my life and thought, oh yeah, this K-team blunder is the sole reason I lost. But there's many things that contributed to this mistake. And it was very valuable for me to go back and look at this with other people. And my limited experience with other people is that they make this same type of psychological mistake. This is especially, like, I'm sure some of you are chess players. This is even worse in chess. It's very cultural too. I feel in video game communities there's this big concept of throwing games, and it's felt in Go too. Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Yes. So I also play assorted video games, and that's very common. So this type of mindset reduces your mistakes in the game to one like villain that you can blame for losing the game. The one bad play, the one bad move, or like the one period in the game where you played beneath your level. And that's a very comfortable excuse, because if you made a mistake that's so bad that you understand it, that is like so like below you and beneath you and disgusting that you don't even have to look at it, life is easier. Yeah, it's easy. It erases all the background that led to that mistake. Exactly. You're summarizing my point very, very cleanly. And I think that this is a common bias when we analyze our games. And we very often lose out on the bigger picture, on many other things we could learn about a game. And I catch myself doing this every 2 losses. Like, I end up having a simplified model of why I lost the game that picks on some issue that uh like very often it's almost like my brain is an algorithm that wants to minimize the amount of things it has to change. So if it's just a one-off blunder like this K18 move, or maybe it's a blunder, I can say, oh, it's a blunder that I made in time pressure, so I just need to practice more so I play quicker and read better and don't get into time pressure. That's also an easy solution. Like, playing more games isn't hard. I just play more games. Like, I go into Fox, or I schedule more games and I play them. That doesn't require me to think. And I think that very often my initial analysis of my mistakes takes the easy way out. And it's an extremely dangerous habit that I catch myself doing very, very often. And I have an assumption that this happens to some other people as well. In chess, game losing blunders where you hang a piece or you hang like mate in one or something is very common, and people think in chess a lot in those terms, like the one blunder that lost me the game. And the reason it's even more dangerous in chess is that in chess is actually true. I'd say that in Go, the one move that loses you the game is actually very rare, and in chess it's very common. So it's even easier to make it an excuse in chess. But there we are. It also happens in video games, indeed, a lot. Okay. So what am I advocating here? Well, I'm suggesting that be careful when you're trying to scapegoat the reason you lost the game, when you're blaming it on one thing, and when you're dismissing it. Maybe not all of you do this. I assume some of you do. So, like, if you're like, I lost because of that mistake, yeah, I lost because of that move. I just played really badly after that point, and like you just don't want to look at it and you don't analyze it. If you don't want to analyze a part of the game, and the rationalization is that it was so bad that it's not worth looking at and it's not worth thinking about, I suggest you take a second look. Reviewing with AI can cause the opposite of this issue, easy to get lost in variations and concept AI brings up and not even get into your actual big mistakes. Yes. Actually, do you feel like studying with AI enhances this too? I mentioned it because sometimes it will give you similar results for games that are way harder or easier to play. I'm not sure. People's relationship to AI and how they study with it is very personal. I have actually found in my life that AI has helped me deal with this issue, because especially when I was a tiny bit younger and a tiny bit weaker, I would analyze my games reductively even more often and even more extremely. So I thought, yeah, this blunder lost the game, and then my opponent lost the game here, and I lost the game there, and it was like a seesaw where I either think I'm hard winning or hard losing. And if I input these games into an AI, it doesn't tell me that story. Very often, the mistakes I thought were really big or really extreme weren't that extreme and didn't matter that much. Just like in this game I played against that 3-dan professional in this recent tournament, I thought that this mistake was much worse than it was. Like this exchange and missing the squeeze of blacks. I thought it was much worse than it was. And getting that second input from other people or from AI, that it isn't as extreme as I thought it was, helps me remember that, like, it helps me get past this cognitive bias. And I've generally found that AI helps me personally deal with that. I don't know what it's like for other people. Maybe for other people, it can lead them on the wrong track where they analyze the wrong mistakes, or maybe AI will tell you that you didn't make a mistake in some position because AI knows how to play a position that you don't. I'm not sure how that is for other people. I think basically getting a second opinion from other people, and this is actually so important that I'm going to put it I'm going to put it on the slide for effect. get a second opinion. Looking at this with friends of mine, including friends that are like somewhat weaker than I am, like 4 dan players, 5 dan players, even weaker actually. Like you don't like a lot of people don't like reviewing with people that are like nominally weaker than them, but I get valuable input from some people that are like that I would beat in tournaments. And I also have teachers I review games with. Their input really helps me with those blind spots, because they don't have the same like attachment to simplify. They don't usually have the same attachment to simplifying the reason you lost the game and losing detail in what like actually caused you to lose the game. So their second opinion is extremely helpful. I strongly recommend that if you think you're making this type of error a lot, when you think about why you lose your games, which mistakes you made. Yeah, a second opinion really helps. I think the other thing you can do is just look out for when am I doing this? Like when am I saying stuff like, yeah, the game was even, or the game was interesting, and then I blundered, or I played really badly in this part of the game, and or I threw the game. These are keywords that I think very often signify that you are not looking at the game. You're not getting as much out of the game as you could be. Okay. I think a very common thing that people do is say, well, yeah, I just played really badly. And there's an implicit assumption that they won't do that again because that was beneath them. And that's not always the case. You will make these mistakes recurringly, and analyzing them is really, really useful. Yeah, so that's this part of my of the lecture. I now want to the main part of the lecture is done, but I want to add a side note, and it's, well, what if you did really play badly, or what if you did like really make one game losing blunder? Well, that was depressing. I'm sorry, Zephodius. Um, I mean, I'm trying to. I wanted this to be uplifting. I want this to be like, well, actually, this is one thing I can say that's uplifting. Well, if these are mistakes that you think are beneath you, like mistakes that are like that you understand are bad, analyzing them might be easier than analyzing concepts that you don't understand. You might get more out of it. Like, actually, analyzing your blunders and your really bad moves and your really bad mistakes is an easier way to improve because they're lower level. They're easier to access. Of course, it goes back. It's an important lesson. It goes back to awareness and mindfulness. Yeah, I'd agree. And I hope I can also make it not depressing, but like encouraging. Where this is like, it's actually an easy way to improve, relatively speaking. I want to show an example of a game where I just blundered and lost. Because making fun of me is a good way to do a lecture. I played this game in Europe's most important annual tournament, at least in terms of prize money, the Grand Slam. I played it last year against Lucas Podbera, who beats me not only on the Go board, but also in terms of Twitch viewers on the European Go Federation stream. And I was white, and this is just a funny game. So I mean, the game is okay. Nothing's really happening, or like stuff is happening, but not important stuff. Then the board blows up. Black is like, "Can you please let me get all of this endgame?" And I'm like, "No." And this is very suspicious. AI doesn't like it, but we end up having all of this interesting invasion stuff. And yeah, at this point, Black decides to chill out. He took the center, and I lived in Gote. Okay, so if you have a keen eye for how people can blunder, you might be asking yourself how I did this, because maybe now you're starting to realize what I did. It's White's turn, and I thought, oh my god, I'm even alive in Sente. I have these exchanges in Sente, and now if I Tanuki, then okay, Black can technically get this Ko. Not this Ko, this Ko. where I can't play here because black would capture. But it's a ko that's also really heavy for black, because when I take, if I ever win this ko, I mean, I can win it by connecting on the first line. So it's a really, really risky ko for black, and I'm not really worried about it. So I get to take Sente. If I really want to, I can also just play here first, and now I'm alive, and I can take Sente. Okay. So I thought, yeah, I just basically have that in Sente. I'll Tenuki now. So I Tenuki. Yes, Siku is correct. I Tenuki'd. And then my opponent frowned and looked really confused, and then played here. And then I was like, oh, yeah, that was annoying. This is a rather ignominious way to lose in the Grand Slam. It's also it's a bit painful because the Grand Slam is like the highest prize money tournament, and unlike most tournaments, it's a knockout. Like, if you lose, you're out. Like, in normal tournaments, you can play other games and stuff. But in this tournament, you're just out. So it's a slightly painful way to go out. Annoying, that's one way of putting it. Yeah. Hello, Waller Dog. Welcome. Yeah, so that wasn't fun. That was no fun. Because somehow in my mind, after black cut, I was going to play here and capture, and somehow my brain didn't really parse that black can play here. And I'm gonna be honest, at the time I wasn't playing many games, so I don't have a large sample size. I do think that this is basically a one-off blunder. Like, this is just a glitch reading mistake. What should have happened is I should have played here. Black wouldn't have captured because black wants Sente, so black would have played whatever, and then I have Sente. Like, I mean, not Sente. Like, black would have played somewhere taking Sente. I think D8 is the best move. And the game continues, and in my mind, this game is probably okay for both sides. I don't think that anyone has an advantage here. Now, one way this could get reductive still is that even though I clearly lost the game because of this mistake, where I just died with something, I played on for many moves. I think I played on until the end, basically. I resigned only in like up late end game. But if we go back, one way you can get reductive is say, oh yeah, I lost because of this blunder, which, if you are implicit enough and dishonest enough, might imply that if you hadn't made this blunder, you would have won. This is not the case. I don't have a good record against Lucas Podpera. If I hadn't blundered this, I probably would have lost. In my opinion, there's about a 80% chance I would have lost. So there's that resolution you lose when you say, oh yeah, I lost because of this. We don't know what would have happened otherwise, which is an important thing to consider. However, this is one of those examples where, you know what, this is quite a bad blunder. There's not much I can do about it. It's just a terrible reading blunder that I'm gonna make like once every, I'm gonna say 1,000 games. Like, I showed this to a friend of mine that's like I think about 18Q, and my friend saw this. Like, this is and it's not a complicated reading thing. So Lucas is just doing commentary on Twitch on the Polish Championship. I'm aware, yes, I've complained about this already. Like I said, Lukan doesn't just beat me on the board, he beats me in terms of viewers on our Twitch streams. But there we are. Yeah. So mistakes like this happen. It does sometimes happen that you make a blunder, and that is the main reason you lost the game. And that sucks. It's no fun. However, I still want to talk a little bit about what you can do. Because a very common mistake people make is, oh, I lost because of this blunder, or I played really badly here. And even if they're right, even if that's the main reason they lost the game, and like that's why that's like what the main thing that caused them to lose. I think that implicitly, by saying that that's below me, like I really blundered there, I made a huge mistake, or like I played really badly. Those types of words, I think, implicitly claim that you don't need to analyze the mistake. It's just something unlucky that happened. It's just something unfortunate. And if you label it as something unfortunate, it's very unlikely you'll go back to think about, well, did I play well? Sorry, did I play well? Like, what can I learn from this? What can I? How can I stop doing this? And I do think you can think about blunders, even the really dumb ones like this one, in constructive ways. Um, so that's. Let's bring up the last slide. So yeah, I claim that even your really basic blunders that just look like huge reading mistakes or like a blip in your radar where you thought something was sent and defended even though you didn't need to. I really suggest you approach such mistakes with the idea of analyzing them. And I'm gonna repeat the idea that when mistakes are really dumb and really stupid and like you see why they're mistakes and you understand why they're bad, half of the work is done for you. If you already understand the mistakes, you just need to understand why you make them. Whereas if you don't understand that they're a mistake at all, you need to like learn why they're bad and stop doing them, which is harder. So this is actually this is something I have done before. I don't do it right now because I don't play that many games. But when I was playing a lot of tournaments, I had a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, where I would list every game I played, and I would list the reason I lost, like what was the losing move, what's the biggest reason in my mind that I lost, and I also listed, and if I won the game, I also listed like what I thought the biggest reason I could have lost was. And as we have discussed in this lecture, this is not a complete way of looking at your mistakes because you can trick yourself in terms of what your biggest mistake was or the main reason you lost the game was. But it is one way to look at things. You can look at this spreadsheet and it gives you a perspective. And what I found is that when I looked at this spreadsheet, I found recurring themes. I found stuff that happened over and over again. My one-off stupid blunders happened over and over again. Like maybe once every 10 games, but once every 10 games is 1 out of every 5 losses. That's a lot. To give an example, I would sometimes, but increasingly more often, lose because of a reading problem. However, the real reason is that I've gotten worse at reading and my style heavily rests on my reading ability. So I needed to change my strategy and zoom out from the nitty-gritty. Yeah. So let's say that Zophodius like misreads one game, and then he says, well, oh, that's unfortunate, I misread, and you move on because you don't misread often, because you see yourself like Zophodius is well known for being like a fighting reading player. And you can say, well, that wasn't a one-off problem. You can think of it that way, or you can look at the landscape of, oh, how many times am I making this mistake? How frequent is this? And you might see patterns, and those patterns might actually mean that you can change something in a productive way. And I would encourage people look at even their most dumb, most like dismissible blunders as tractable issues. It's not just random stuff that happens to you that you can't analyze and improve. There are things that you can look at and you can learn from, and that you can't stop doing. This isn't always the case. I think that there are really one-off blunders that you would make once in every 1,000 games. Those do exist, but they're rare because you would do them once in every 1,000 games. If there's a really dumb mistake that you're making 1 in every 5 losses, then it's really important to fix that. It's actually one of the easiest ways you can win more. So that's what I want to end on. Even when the mistake is really dumb, and even if there's not like a huge underlying, even if there's not an underlying problem in the way that you understand the game, your really like embarrassing mistakes are still a good place to start if you want to improve. Okay. I think that that's basically it. Tractable seems to imply that it's easy to change, but that's not the case. You actually have to change your thinking patterns / habits. Yeah. When I say make it tractable, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying that there has to. I am suggesting that there should be a change in mindset from making the issue like from thinking about it as just a random occurrence, like almost like you roll a dice and once in a while you like roll sevens and you like make a blunder. Instead of thinking about it in those terms, I would I would like suggest that people think about them as, well, maybe this isn't easy, but it is possible to analyze these. There are patterns I can find. Mindfulness, yeah, that's one, you can put it that way. I wouldn't have used that wording, but yes. Some type of awareness of what's going on in your head when you analyze your mistakes is important. Um, okay, so that is everything I had for today. And astonishingly, I'm basically finishing this lecture on time. Like every lecture for the Nordic Dojo, like we send the email and it says, yeah, the lecture will last about 75 minutes. And every time mine lasts between 90 and 100. So this is like one time where I'm sort of finishing on time. And I yeah, I think the main reason is that one of the examples I wanted to use, I literally couldn't find the file. I had a game I wanted to show from a student of mine and I couldn't find it. So I guess that artificially shortened my lecture. There's a reason I call Jeff's coaching go therapy. Yeah, Jeff's amazing. I agree with that. As I said, something I do want to stress here is that one way to make these issues easier to analyze is wait, let's ban someone. Wait, how do you ban someone again? And there we are. So one thing that is really useful is to get a second opinion. Like a teacher helps, but teachers are like one way you can get a second opinion, but you can just ask a friend, like review a game with your friend. And very importantly, don't sell them your narrative. Like, I think the reason teachers often give a good second perspective is that there's an implicit agreement that you're going to learn something from the teacher and they have something to say that like you can learn from. Often if you show a game to a friend of yours that's like either weaker than you or the same level or something, very often you have like your story of the game and you tell it to them. Getting a second opinion from someone who will give you a different narrative, and letting them have a different narrative, whether they're a teacher or like even a student or just a friend, is really useful. I think that's one of the best tips I can give for how I can analyze this type of mistake. So yeah, that's everything I have. If anyone has any questions, anything else to mention, I'm happy to interact with that. Thanks, Gentix, for the nice words. And yeah, otherwise I will wrap up. Thank you for watching. I'm wondering. Laters, thank you. Nice. Good stream, thanks. Yeah. So the European Go Federation is still streaming, and I suggest I'm gonna follow them so I can raid them. Yeah, back to Lucas, exactly. So I'm just gonna go ahead and raid Lucas, who is a Nordic Dojo teacher. And he's doing commentary on the Polish Go Championship, and you can go watch that instead. Thank you for following, everyone. Before we leave, I will mention that the Nordic Go Dojo is a Go school. We run an online league. People can play against each other in the league. It's free pairings. You just you can play games against each other with other people in the league, and we the teachers will review them for you. And we provide text reviews, and also by subscribing to the NGD, you sponsor lectures like these. Like that money goes into these lectures we make, which are freely available for everyone. The Nordic Dojo website also has a bunch of free content, so you can go check it out and stuff like that. Incidentally, all the teachers are getting better at teaching. I mean, well, some of us are getting better at playing too, but yeah, practicing teaching really helps. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I believe the next Nordic Dojo lecture will just be in 2 weeks. It's on Saturday, 1 p.m. finish time every 2 weeks. And yeah, thank you very, very much for joining, and enjoy the Polish Championship stream. Bye.